Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. My name is Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning in yet again. Happy Thursday to you all. We should have a great show ahead. Just going to go over some general Week 7 prop bets. Yesterday we had our Thursday Night Football betting preview. Now we are looking well ahead to Sunday's slate of games. I'm going to give you my weekly injury report in terms of players who you might have to monitor in terms of fantasy implications. Then I'm going to do my picks for the week, my Chris's picks of the week, with some big games coming up this Sunday. And then lastly, I will go over both the Super Bowl odds and the college football playoff odds to close out today's show. So it should be a good one. A lot of betting, a lot of fantasy as well to cover. Without further ado, before we get into today's show, if you want to see more content such as this, including some of our short content on our channels, like, follow, and subscribe to the show and the network so that you can view more videos such as this instead of just the live show. But if you do want to interact with the live show more directly, continue to make yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. Great way to contribute, interact. I want to hear your guys' opinion throughout the show and not just mine all the time. You guys have been doing a great job of that, so let's continue it. Let's continue to make this show as good as possible. And without further ado, let us jump into yet another exciting edition of the podcast. Starting off, like I said, with some more general Week 7 prop bets. We looked at Thursday Night Football a little bit, and now we want to look at Sunday's games because it's a very exciting Sunday slate of games. A lot of intriguing storylines, a lot of players who I feel will have big moments, but most importantly, a lot of ways for you to win nice cash. But without further ado, let's jump right into the segment. Starting off with a quarterback playing in perhaps the most important game of his season thus far, interconference game, C.J. Stroud. In this game against the Packers, he has a unique opportunity to truly exploit a secondary who I think is punching above its weight right now because it's constantly relying on the turnover rather than, full-on coverage skills. Not an indictment of either of Jair Alexander or Xavier McKinney, but it's what I've noticed from their play thus far. They're very opportunistic, and it's not a bad thing. But against a guy like C.J. Stroud, who can be poised and comfortable in the pocket, even without one of his best receivers in Nico Collins, I feel like this is going to be a big game for him. So, with that being said, I'm going to take the over on his yardage total at 249.5, and at minus 110 is a solid bet in a very, very, very important game for both of these teams. Coming into this, I actually have more confidence in Stroud, even though he's had kind of a topsy-turvy season, not necessarily as consistent as we would have thought in his second season in the league. But this is his opportunity against a defense that I don't think is as for real as people think it is. So look for C.J. Stroud to potentially hit the over in a big game for him and his Texans team. But now, transitioning to a more low-key game, one that I'm not necessarily excited about, and you'll see why. How about Bijan Robinson, though? All biases aside, Bijan Robinson is a special player no matter who he's playing. And playing my Seattle Seahawks, I think he is primed for a big game. We've seen Bijan this season kind of struggle in Raheem Morris' scheme. He's getting the touches he deserves and the touches that Raheem Morris promised him, but he's not been doing as much with them as a lot of people might have hoped. But this game spells like one where he's going to have a breakout performance against a very heavily depleted Seahawks run defense. No matter who they've thrown out there this season, no matter how many injuries they've sustained and they've tried to rotate players in and out, they haven't been able to find any modicum of success stopping the run. And Bijan feels like a player who can exploit that, even though he's had his struggles himself. And I could have said Tyler Algier as well could hit the over, but the reason why I'm just picking with Bijan is because of his unique ability to break down defenses. And Seattle will struggle with the more physical style Bijan can bring on early downs. Not saying that Tyler Algier won't have a good game, because he's been just as good, if not better, than Bijan in certain situations. But I'm just saying that Bijan's style presents a tough challenge for the Seattle defense. So I'm picking the over here for him as well, 63.5 yards at minus 110. And I really hope that this game will project to be the start of something big for Bijan this season, because he's an offensive weapon that if the Falcons can get going, they could be the cream of the crop in the NFC South. And then another bet in another big game as well, another big divisional game at that. Justin Jefferson, let's talk about him in this matchup against the Lions. Now, obviously, the Lions kind of in a weird spot. They look like one of the best teams in the NFC, but their win over the Cowboys was tainted by the injury of Aiden Hutchinson. And even though he's not a secondary piece, he was the heart and soul of that defense. So losing that piece up front could be detrimental to the entire defense and not just, the defensive line. But still, I feel like what I love about the Lions defense is that no matter who is playing at every level, they are a very physical team. And not for nothing, I feel like they still are contenders in the NFC North and beyond without Aiden Hutchinson. And I think that a large part of it is going to come down to this secondary. It's a little bit young, it's a little bit experienced, but overall it's one that I really am looking forward to seeing down the stretch now that a lot more weight is being placed on their shoulders. And in this game, I think it will show through to the point where I kind of feel like Justin Jefferson might struggle in this game. As much as I love him, as much as I think he's a superstar receiver and has been integral to, the growth of this Vikings offense with the challenge of Sam Darnold coming in and being their starter instead of the expected role of J.J. McCarthy, I feel like this is a game where it certainly feels like Jefferson might not perform up to his lofty standards. So I'm going to pick the under here, and it's actually an even betting line right now at 91.5. So it's a weird bet, I know, but it just feels like a game where the difference will be in defensive play rather than the explosiveness of both of these offenses. So that's why I feel like Justin Jefferson might be a little bit quieter than people expect in this one. And then the fourth one that I want to talk about here is another kind of weird one. This is one that I'm really hoping hits for a lot of people because I really love this player and what he can be for this Carolina offense, but I've really not seen the opportunity for him to really break out. But in this game against the Washington Commanders team that's really had its defensive struggles no matter what the offense has been doing for them to win football games, I feel like there will be moments where this guy can finally break through and have the game that I really want him to have. He's someone who is on my personal fantasy football team, not have had the chance to utilize him that often, but this week I am starting him because I have a couple injuries, and I feel like this could be a breakout week for him as well, not just from a betting perspective, but a fantasy perspective. And of course, I'm talking about Xavier Legette, the young rookie out of South Carolina, coming in to this Carolina Panthers team. Was really excited about him, but over the first couple weeks of the season, through no fault of his own, he hasn't really been able to get into this team. Now Andy Dalton comes in, and the ceiling is kind of raised in terms of the expectations for this wide receiver core. And we've seen it with Deontay Johnson and how he's elevated his game. But now I want to see it with Xavier Legette, because I believe that he has much more potential right now than Johnson, in my opinion, if they want to go all in on this kid. And not for nothing, he really has some very special traits that the Carolina Panthers will love in their receiving core going forward. He has great body control. He can extend the field. He can run routes to the best of his ability. And in this matchup, I kind of feel like the Washington secondary can be exploited. I don't really think that this Washington secondary is as scary as I would like it to be at this point in the season. So The Panthers will have their opportunities. They may be few and far between, but they will have their chances to stretch the field and really try and get at this weak Washington secondary. So I'm going to take the over here on Xavier Legette. It was a little bit of a risk, I know, but I truly believe that he's a special talent for this Carolina Panthers team. And at minus 110, it's not, sweat off your back to place your bet on this guy. And then the final bet that I want to bring to your attention is one that I'm really excited about, because this is a guy who really alters the tenor of this team with how he plays the game of football. He was injured for much of the start of the season and much of last season as well, and we saw the kind of innate struggles the Jacksonville Jaguars had without him. And in this game in London, it wasn't pretty, but this guy showed how important he is to the success of this team. So I'm talking about Evan Engram. And what I love about Evan Engram for the Jacksonville Jaguars is he's actually someone who can get Trevor Lawrence out of the mindset of, I always have to look for the deep ball. If Evan Engram runs good routes for Trevor Lawrence, he won't feel as much pressure to extend plays downfield. If it makes it easier for Trevor Lawrence, then I feel like the kind of tandem will be reciprocated, because Evan Engram is just a player who can calm down an offense because of how easy he makes route running look. And not for nothing, going against the Patriots, they'll definitely have a lot of chances to exploit this defense who, even though they've been much better than I expected they would be, can still have moments where they lose their concentration. And if there are moments where the Jags offense is moving the football, look for Evan Engram to be a big part of that. So I'm going to take the over again here for Evan Engram, over 46.5 yards at minus 110. And I think that he will add a lot of value going forward for you. But let me know what you think in the comments about all these bets, what your favorite bets might be for this week. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side, I will give you my weekly injury report. Some players either who sustained injuries last week, who have had ongoing ones, or might even be coming back, and how they will affect the fantasy football weekend. You definitely don't want to miss it. We'll be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.